Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. I am going to say that one of my favorite things in the entire world is when I see my guests just jamming during my intro. It makes me so happy. So got to notate that. Thank you so much for those of you that are jumping on live with us. This is the Her Version podcast. The Her Version platform is based on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Nikki Fries. I don't think you could get a better combination than this girl. She is a hybrid of author, comedian, and coach with a sprinkle of inspiration. She is here today to share some of her journey through divorce, her first and hopefully last encounter with an asshole, or for the sake of keeping our community educated, we are going to call it what it is, a real-life narcissist. She is here today to talk openly about doing what you have to do to make an escape plan, the importance of turning to a community of people you trust, and the value of telling your story. Also by her book. Welcome, Nikki. Yeah, I like that you're talking about the in-between part and getting over that, because I think that that's a lot of the issue that many people have as far as, you know, they're sitting here, they're listening to us. They're like, okay, Nikki, I get it. I'm feeling inspired by your story. I'm in a shitty relationship, or my husband cheated, or whatever it is. And they're sitting in the darkness right now. And they're looking towards the light. They're like, I see Nikki. I see her. I get it. But I have no idea how to get from this shitty spot to that better spot. What are the steps? So I like that you're actually, you know, you're saying that that was also an issue for you. You're like, where's the middle part where you jump from one, you know, the jump from one to the other. So in your experiences throughout your challenges and all the things that you've gone through in your life, have you seen a some steps, like a 1, 2, 3 steps that you physically or emotionally, mentally have done in your stories to get you from kind of a darker spot to a lighter spot? What do you do?
So the first thing I would say for people who are in the dark and don't really know where to go in the light is understand that, like, all the advice you're getting from somebody that's not unbiased, right, are all of their personal projections. Okay, so you talking to your mother.
Explain that.
To your mother about a man, she gonna go back to her men and all the stuff she had to deal with, because our perception is what we've experienced, right? Now, granted, my therapist, Nancy, she had her own shit. Yeah. But I trusted Nancy more because she had dealt with more people in these places that she could become extremely unbiased. She didn't love me. She didn't give a fuck about me. She didn't know my ex-husband. She didn't know any other thing except for what I told her. And luckily, because I paid her and she's been doing it for a long time, she could keep it real with me. She could be like, Nikki, what about this? And what about that? And you have to consider other things. So the first step I would tell people is, if you don't know where to start with somebody you don't know. Yeah. Start with a therapist. Start with, you know, maybe a coach. Start with somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game to be able to tell you. Because listen, we also have to take our own accountability, right? There were times I was not the best wife. There were times when I was like, go fucking fold your own clothes. Get up out of my motherfucker. There were times that I didn't handle situations the best way I could. Yeah. So allowing that space for people to come into your world and be like, listen, yes, this person fucked up, but this is what you fucked up too. And this is how you can be better for the future. I would recommend doing that first. That's at least what I did. If you want to get into specific concepts, I also told myself to, I am a very structured person. When I found out, I moved out within a week. I packed my shit up. I had a car full, but I'm also one of those people, I'm not petty. You can take the rings, you can take all that shit, because I don't want an excuse to have to see your ass unless we're not signing papers. Okay. So for me, I told myself, like, I have to go. Like, you have to rid yourself of whatever is bothering you. It could be a relationship, it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be whatever. But like, once you are truly ready, you need to have a plan in place that puts you in a place for success. Yeah. And that comes from ridding yourself of that person, setting hard boundaries, splitting the lines, you know what I mean? And then it's all personal growth. Like, the hardest part is leaving. And then after you kind of get over that hump, it's just an educational process. It's you learning, like, where you can be better, where you fucked up, and how you're going to move in the future. Because nothing else matters, right? Like, people come into your life, they leave. Okay, cool. My ex-husband came into my life, he left, cool. But let me tell you, the lessons that I learned from that marriage were needed. The lessons that I learned about myself, like, were needed. And that was all from interpersonal, like, learning about who I am.
Yes, 100%.
So those are my steps. Like Renee said, burn everything. Well, don't burn everything, but put it to the side. Put it in the closet so you don't got to see that shit. Unless it's expensive, and then pawn it. Okay? put it on Facebook Marketplace. Do some shit like that. But if it's not that, it's just kind of like, set yourself up for success. We all have that friend that's like, well, I'm just not gonna block him. Like, I don't, like, that's so final. And it's like, no, bitch, block the number, delete it. Like, even though you have it memorized, he does not need access to you. She does not need access to you. If you are that serious, you have to eliminate this person from your life, and you're gonna have to grow individually. Because the funny thing is once you grow to a certain point, once that person comes back in, you're like, who is this? Oh, have you always really feel like that? You can just kind of see it from the natural progression of your own growth that, like, this ain't it, and it wasn't it.
Yeah. Looking back now, do you see where where it maybe wasn't a match? What's your thoughts on that?
Girl, yes, I completely married out of convenience. I kind of fell into the societal expectation of, like, you go to college, you graduate, you get married. We had been together for 6 years, but it wasn't that, like, I mean, even I remember on my wedding day, and I talk about it in the book, I had one of my best friends was in my bridal party, and he goes, are you scared? And I was like, no, what's the worst that happens? We get a divorce. And not even thinking about, like, bitch, you should not be saying that on your wedding day. It was just very much a marriage out of convenience. And while I did love him, we met so young that it was one of those things that it was just so comfortable that I didn't want to get out of that comfort, even if I was miserable. I mean, we weren't happy before then, right? Because we were just such different people. I like to go out. He wanted to be in the house. I want to talk to people. He wants to not talk to people, you know? And he just wasn't nearly as present or introspective as I was. And that's completely fine. But we should have never gotten married.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's crazy.
When did you realize that? Like, really soon after? Did it take you some time?
It took me some time. There were things that, like, I just was, you know, because I don't think people understand. And I learned this through having, like, emotional connections and deep love and better sex and better food and better dinners and date nights with other people, right? Yeah. Because I didn't know that was out there. I didn't know that that chance was out there. I didn't know that type of love was out there. And I only experienced it with other men. And then I was like, oh shit, I could have this?
Yeah.
And that's when I could look back and be like, okay.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, it wasn't for me.
That's so interesting. I love that you're saying that because, you know, I've never been married. So I'm just about to turn 40, still never been married. I do have a fiance. But and this isn't not to, like, project onto anybody's life or feelings or.
Go ahead, girl, project. Throw it out there.
Like, how are you only having intercourse with 1 or 2 or 3 people and then marrying? I just don't understand when you're like teenage 20s, you don't even know what the fuck you're doing until you're like 30.
Because you don't know what you're doing, right? You think sex is just like, all right, I guess, all right, this is awkward. Okay, cool. Hurry up during a commercial. Like, I mean, we were fucking like we were 40, 50, not even 40, because I feel like 40 is the freak number. We were fucking like we were 70. Let me take that back, okay? What I'm saying is that we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know my legs could twist like that until I met that one guy. And I didn't know he could hurt me like that and maybe call me back until that other guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it comes through experience. So I get that now, right? Like I talk to girls now that are like 21, 22, and I'm like, girl, go out and fuck somebody. Like, just try something different. And, you know, maybe go out and fuck somebody's a little bit harsh for some people, but like experience things, learn your body, learn what you like, what you don't like. But when you're dating somebody at 18, you just kind of think this is what it is. Yeah. So that's why it is so easy to only have awkward sex with 3 people and then be like, all right, well, let's get married. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what it is. And then you get it, and then you're like, honey, okay.
And then I always kind of wonder too, as far as individuals who are in those relationships where they like married their high school or college sweetheart. How do you have that conversation, which I'm sure many do, but to go from saying, hey, can we stop having like 20-year-old sex and now like go buy a book from Barnes and Nobles and like try some new shit out? Like, who starts that conversation? What is that look like? Like it has, but somebody has to like initiate that in order for there to be any sort of change.
Okay, so like, Sabrina, let's not get it twisted, okay?
I don't have this issue. I'm talking about other people. Like, how are people doing this? Because I'm just thinking of myself. If my man came to me and said, hey, I want to do this, blah, 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 I would be offended. Okay, I would be like, what? The way that I'm doing it isn't good enough?
Okay, so like, first of all, I hear you. Yeah. This is how I think about it. You ever think about like when you first start dating a new guy, and maybe might be a little inappropriate. Should we be inappropriate?
Nothing's inappropriate.
Okay. And he's going down on you and he's trash at it. Okay. And you're like, hey, maybe try it like this.
Yeah.
Maybe try it like that. That's how you have to introduce it. So you don't have to be aggressive and be like, listen, I want you to start wearing a cape. Maybe one day you put on some fucking cat ears and you're like, oh, let's try it. You know, like, I think the best way to kind of explain to somebody what you want is by like doing it yourself, right? By like, if you want to do role play or you want to do something spicy or something different or fun or whatever, just jump out there and be like, what do you think about this? Like, and then see how they are and then go from there, because we've all had to teach a man how to do something. Okay.
Yeah. So I agree. It's also, I think this also I might be projecting from my past. So my ex, the narcissist, there was a few times when I tried to sex things up a little bit, and he accused me of cheating, like hardcore.
Wow.
He was saying that I like learned it from somebody else, and I literally just like read it in like the freaking 17 magazine or Glamour or some shit while I was at the grocery store, you know. Like,
yeah. But it's funny you say that though too, because like you're giving that example, right? I remember with my narcissist, he never wanted to do anything I did with other men. So he was kind of the same way. Like I'd be like, hey, I want to go hiking. And he'd be like, have you hiked with other men? And I was like, yeah, I've hiked with a lot of people. And he'd be like, well, then I don't want to do it. Or if I was to introduce something like that, he would be like, did you do that on other men? And I'd be like, yeah, duh, I'm doing jumping jack, you know? And he'd be like, well, then I don't want to do it. Wow. So I think that's also an interesting piece, because then that also kind of tells you more too about your partner, right? Yeah. If you're trying to be open and fluid with your partner and they're kind of throwing it back on you as a negative thing, like maybe we might have to take a couple steps back and think about like where we are in our relationship and why did I feel so comfortable and why are they not?
Yeah. Very interesting. Definitely something to think
yeah.
about. What's the number one lesson you've learned about life?
Oh, I love this question. that anything you want is attainable. You just have to do the shit. And I know that's so cliche to say, but literally you can create anything you want, especially in this day and age. And you can have exactly what you want in whatever way you want it.
I love that.
The interesting thing I will say to this is success is very different, right? We have this expectation of, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and it's going to be the biggest thing in the world. But you have to, at a certain point, ask yourself what you view as successful. Do you want to be famous? Because if that's your goal, then you might have to do something different. Or do you want to change your community around you? Do you want to inspire the small group of women that you have that come to you, that you lead? Do you want to do online courses? Do you want to, you know, make an impact in a smaller place that eventually goes bigger? Like, you have to ask yourself what the meaning of success is for you, and then create whatever you want, however you see it, and apply it to that.